listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting us spend some time with you today. I am being closely monitored and supervised this morning.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
You know, people laugh when I say that, but you really don't know how true it is.
No, they don't.
Oh, thank you for letting us spend some time. Lots of things going on. But before I get into all of that, let me give you the advertisement, right? Because I got to say it. And the best time to do it's up front when everybody's coming in. And cause sometimes the people who listen live come in a little later, and that's fine. If you like what you hear, chances are your friends and your family might like it as well. And your enemies certainly need to hear it. So don't be afraid of the share buttons, like buttons, all those good things that help other people find us easier. Just kind of boosts up the analytics and makes it easier for people to see where we're at. If all goes as planned, and that is, you know, I used to say barring fire, flood, and Indian attack, but in these days, you know, as long as we have an internet signal, I am supposed to be interviewed by Logan Crawford tomorrow morning for the Spotlight Network. If you're not familiar with Spotlight Network, look it up. It's the best thing I can tell you to do. They interview some interesting people from all walks of life. So the interview is supposed to focus on my first book, Tradition to Truth. I'm not exactly sure when it's going to be released, but as soon as I know, I will let you know. To coincide with that, as I said, a lot's been going on. To coincide with that, God's Universe, God's Rules is scheduled to be released on audiobook. Inheriting Lies has already been released. And hopefully, if you so choose, you can take advantage of that. I know that they're not going to be available in every country. So you might have to bootleg a copy, which is fine. You need to hear it. So that's out there. Lots of good stuff going on. Now that the advertisements are all over and done with, and all the fancy news is over and done with, we can move on to today's topic. and I'm going to start, and I'm going to tell you about something that happened recently, but I'm going to use it as an example. I'm not going to pick sides. I'm not going to make any accusations or anything like that. But you may have heard about the controversy that surrounds a couple of folks, John Lindell and Mark Driscoll. When I heard about this, I thought, okay, let's see what's going on. And it really made me think, when we see something that we might consider sin or something we might consider evil, we need to speak up, but we need to do so properly. Now, if you're not familiar with what happened, John Lindell hosted a men's conference, and during that conference, there was a part where they had some entertainment. A gentleman named Alex Magala performed. It was a sword swallowing and I guess you could say kind of an acrobatic act. Okay. Driscoll considered this to be a sinful exhibition, and I've not watched it, so I don't know. I've heard what they've said about it, and that's fine. Like I say, I'm not making any accusations because I didn't see it. I didn't watch it. Driscoll the next morning chose to speak to the group that was there, and he made some statements that were not derogatory from what I can read, but he began to explain what he witnessed, and he considered it inappropriate. He was immediately asked by Lindell to leave the stage, which he did. He just basically walked off. The problem is, since then, there's been a continued exchange of less than complimentary words. Okay. Included in that, Lindell made some statements that were inaccurate about the gentleman who performed the act, Magala, and Magala then did a YouTube video to clarify it. Now, I watched part of that, but not all of it. I didn't need to see the whole thing. I realized that Lindell basically intentionally tried to misdirect some things in order to gain support for his position. So we have a very, very recent event, and the question becomes who's right and who's wrong. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and it won't be the first time I've been there. I'm going to say that everybody that was involved, everybody, that includes everybody. They were all kind of wrong in a way. Okay. Let me try and clarify and make some sense out of what I just said. The attendees, the people who were there being entertained, the people who witnessed what happened, if they had felt something was wrong, something was inappropriate, they should have either gotten up and left or spoken up or did something. Now, I realize not everybody has the courage to do that. All right? When you're sitting in a group, you do have that kind of a group mindset. You look around and you go, is anybody else seeing what I'm seeing? But apparently nobody did. So it's, one of those things where, you look around, it's like, should I really be sitting here? Is this inappropriate? Is this, is it that? Because different people view things differently, right? What may look inappropriate to one person may to someone else seem perfectly natural. They might have considered Magala's act to be nothing more than entertainment. And that is absolutely up to the individual. So if the entertainment was appropriate in any way, those in attendance should have said something, but I haven't watched the videos. I don't know if anybody got up and left. I don't know. And again, I'm not making any accusations. I'm just using this as an example for something we're going to get into. Apparently, though, Mr. Driscoll did not choose to say anything to Mr. Lindell, and instead he chose to speak to everyone in attendance at the conference when he was asked to leave. So we have an entire event being publicized, and the only people who are actually profiting from this are Lindell and Driscoll, because after all, even bad publicity is still publicity, right? I can't say one way or the other if it was appropriate or inappropriate. I don't need to know. All I'm doing is using this as an example to learn from. When we see something, when and how should we address sin, how we should address evil, when it's in front of us. There's a right way and there's a wrong way. And we need to make our concerns, our feelings known about such things appropriately and properly, especially in any type of religious setting. It's more imperative that we follow biblical principle and biblical authority. Now, I will say Lindell did quote the Matthew 18 passage. If you have an issue, go to the person who offends you first. Driscoll did not do that. Unless he considers the people who were in attendance offended him by not speaking up. That's entirely possible. I don't know how he feels. Can't read the man's mind. Driscoll's address to the crowd triggered a response from Lindell, and he said, "You need to leave." Perfectly acceptable. After all, Driscoll was in Lindell's house, basically. He was under what I would consider a threshold covenant at that place and time. When you come into my house, you have to follow my rules. Basically, that's the threshold covenant. People use it every day, and they don't even realize they're doing it, right? It's that simple. You knock on somebody's door, they invite you in. There's an agreement that when you come into their house, you're going to abide by their rules. That's a threshold covenant. What would you have done? If you were sitting there, if you witnessed something that you thought wasn't appropriate, would you have left, or would you have just kind of quietly sat there and wondered, why isn't anybody saying anything? I found myself in that situation years ago. I was in a church service. Pastor was speaking, basically speaking blasphemy. And the big reason I didn't get up and leave, and I wanted to. But I had some very expensive musical equipment sitting in the front of the church because I was part of, I'm going to say, the entertainment. I was playing for someone who was singing. And I really didn't want to leave it unintended, even in that situation. I kind of looked around and thought, is anybody else hearing what I'm hearing? Now, I did get up and walk to the back of the building, just kind of away from everybody where I could be away. Didn't say anything for one major reason. It wasn't the place, but more importantly, I was not given the words to speak at that time. Did I want to say something? Oh, yeah. I wanted to say something. And what I would have said probably would not have been, well, they would have been my words, so it would not have been appropriate in that setting, okay? Sometimes when I get, I'll just put it this way. When I get mad, sometimes I say things I probably shouldn't say, right?
Yes.
But we have to remember Ecclesiastes 3. There's a time to speak and a time for silence. No matter how much I wanted to, I was not given the words. And I was a good boy. I held my tongue. And yes, it was difficult for me. Since then, I learned that sometimes you have to bite your tongue and hope for the best. And since then, there's been a lot of other times that I was given the words to speak. And, when I did, hopefully it glorified the Creator. Which leads me to another question. In the Lindell Driscoll controversy, where is the glory for our Creator? Where is the glory for the Almighty? Now, there's plenty of glory for the two gentlemen involved, actually the three gentlemen involved. They're all getting some publicity out of it. But where is the glory for our Creator? I'm not seeing it. Now, maybe you can think of an event that you witnessed when somebody spoke out and caused more conflict than necessary. And hopefully you can think of a time when somebody spoke up and the Almighty was honored. He was glorified. Hopefully you can say that something happened and yes, it was indeed God that was glorified in that situation. And I know it can cause a lot of anxiety for somebody to speak out against sin. It takes some courage. It takes some doing. But I can say this, when you're given the words to speak by the Creator, they will be biblically irrefutable. No doubt about it, because he's not going to tell you to say something. Our Creator will not tell you to say something that conflicts with anything he's already said. He will not give you anything to say that is in conflict with what has already been written. And that made me wonder, why is it that when believers, and by believers I mean anybody who claims that God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He created heaven and earth. So I'm including a lot of people in that. Why is it when believers, they speak out against sin, they speak out against evil, and all of a sudden they're met with some derogatory statement and they choose to back down? Sometimes you get the feeling, well, that person acts like they'd rather die than stand on the word of our Creator. Right? You've seen it. We've all seen it. They'd rather crawl back in a hole than have an immoral or a sinful person challenge them. I've been called legalistic because I choose to be obedient to the sacred word of the Creator. Well, my response has become, if I'm being legalistic, does that mean you're being illegalistic because you choose to reject it? And that catches a lot of people off guard. They expect believers to back down, not challenge their position, not stand on the sacred word of the Almighty. If a sinful person accuses you of judging them, what is your response? Do you tuck your tail between your legs and walk away? Or speak the words you are given? Moses himself was challenged. But Moses knew the Creator had spoken to him. He knew he'd given him the instructions, and he knew he was to follow all of the instructions he was given. But he was challenged, and he was challenged in a way that is, I guess I can say, famous in a way. Actually, let's look at that account. Well, a couple of parts of that account.
Korah, Dathan, Abram, and On turned against Moses. Korah was the son of Azar. Azar was the son of Kohath. Kohath was the son of Levi. Dathan and Abram were brothers, sons of Elab. And On was the son of Peleth. Dathan, Abram, and On were the tribes of Reuben. These four men gathered 250 other Israelite men and challenged Moses. They were well-known leaders chosen by the community. They came as a group to speak to Moses and Aaron. The men said, "You have gone too far. All the people are holy. Every one of them is holy, and the Lord is with them. So why do you put yourselves above all the people?" Then when Moses heard this, he bowed face down. Then he said to Korah and his followers, "Tomorrow morning the Lord will show you who belongs to him. The Lord will bring the one who is holy near him. The Lord will bring to himself the person he chooses." Numbers 16, verses 1 through 5. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell everyone to move away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abram." Moses stood and went to Dathan and Abram. The elders of Israel followed him. Moses warned the people, "Move away from the tents of these evil men. Don't touch anything of theirs. If you do, you will be destroyed because of their sins." So they moved away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abram. Dathan and Abram were standing outside their tents, and their wives and children and little babies. Then Moses said, "Now you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things. It was not my idea. If these men die a normal death the way men usually die, then the Lord did not really send me. But if the Lord does something new, you will know that they have insulted the Lord. The earth will open and swallow them alive. They will go to where the dead are, and everything that belongs to them will go with them." Then when Moses finished saying these things, the ground under the men opened up. The earth seemed to open its mouth and swallow them. All their families, all Korah's men, and everything they owned went down. They were buried alive, going to where the dead are, and everything they owned went with them. Then the earth closed over them. They died and were gone from the community. Numbers chapter 16, verses 23 through 33.
Now, there is a very sarcastic part of me that wants to ask, who said you can't take it with you? You can't take it with you when you die. Well, apparently Korah and his followers did. But that's being sarcastic, right? I also have to say Myra hates it when I make her read the names that are in there, because not everybody can be named Frank and Bob and Bill and Steve and some of the because these are Hebrew names, they mean things, and you have to understand why they're there. Interesting story, isn't it? Valuable lesson. They challenged Moses. Moses said, "This isn't my idea. I didn't ask for this, but..." And he spoke the words he was given. When we know beyond any shadow of any doubt that our Creator has given us the words to speak, the people who attempt to challenge us and persecute us are going to receive their punishment. Might not be immediate, but they're going to receive it. And here's where we really need to pay attention. We need to be absolutely certain, beyond any doubt whatsoever, and I mean any doubt, that the words we speak are not our own, but they come straight from the Creator himself. Not from what we think, not from what we have maybe seen, not what sounds good. They need to be from the Almighty himself. Jerry Falwell was a well-known pastor. He became very famous because of some of the things he said, some of the things he preached. Problem is, some of those things were not were his words. They were not from the Almighty. I don't know why I was able to recognize it when I heard it, but I realized they're not his words. Years and years and years ago, I remember hearing him say some things. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. That just doesn't sound right. I knew that Falwell didn't understand the covenant of marriage. Don't know how I knew it, but I knew he didn't get it. Years later, after a lot of study, I was able to figure it out. Falwell spoke against homosexual marriage, but he did so in a way that did not uphold the covenant of biblical marriage. They were his words, not the words of the Creator. Sadly, even today, Falwell's legacy, his son, they're surrounded by controversy and scandal. It's kind of sad, isn't it? You see, there is a time to speak. There is a time to remain silent. If you are chosen to speak, if you are given the words, speak them boldly, speak them with confidence, say only what you are given to say, then be quiet. It's that simple. Yeshua, Jesus, standing in front of Pontius Pilate. Pilate says, "Are you king of the Jews?" And, in today's language, it would read, "Hey, you said that, not me." Right? In the Bible it says, "That's what you say." Hey, you said it. I didn't say it, you said it. He wasn't given any more words to speak. So what did he do? He kept his mouth shut. There is a time to speak. There is a time to remain silent. When you see evil or you see sin, and you're going to see it, if you watch the news, if you read papers, if you look at magazines, if you look at advertising, you're going to see it. Speak only when you're given the words. Speak only the words you were given. There's no need for commentary. There's no need for explanation. You remember Moses. He spoke because he knew beyond the shadow of any doubt he was given the words to speak. He was in the middle of a controversy. Now, I don't know if Driscoll was given those words or not. Have no clue. Never met the man. Don't know his actual relationship to the Almighty. But there's part of me that says, no, these were his words. He didn't stand his ground. He just left. Yeshua, in front of Pilate, stood his ground, kept his mouth shut. And yes, he was standing in front of he was standing in the presence of somebody who could have him killed at any moment. He didn't say anything because he was not given any other words to speak. Our Creator was certainly glorified in that event. Moses stood his ground, spoke the words he was given to say. Our Creator was glorified in that event. Driscoll stood in front of a crowd, was asked to leave. Was the Creator glorified in that event? This was a men's conference. Who was glorified? Who gets the credit? When you're given the words and your only concern is to glorify and honor the Creator, don't worry about what's going to happen to you. You'll be taken care of. Kind of, in a way. It might not be the way we expect. Might not be what you're looking for. Might not be what you're hoping for. But you will be taken care of. Are you going to be ridiculed? Are you going to be made fun of? Yeah, you will. There was another time I was in a group. They were trying to decide some things, and they wanted to do things according to something that wasn't biblical. And I said, wait a minute, what's the Bible say about this? My response, or the response I received, was we don't care. One of the other things that sort of pushed me away from the church we were going to at the time. When our Creator can be honored and glorified even through our persecution and humiliation, it's worth it. Did that particular group make fun of me for saying, let's do it the way the Bible says to do it? Yeah. But you know what? Within a year after that happened, a lot of things happened in that particular worship community, and they weren't all good things. When we speak on our own, that's a good time to be silent. When we bring upon ourselves because of what we do, what we say, we deserve the persecution. We deserve the humiliation. Because it's the Almighty's way of saying, I didn't tell you to say that. But when He gives us the words, when He tells us what to say, when He tells us how to say it, just like Moses, right? This isn't my idea, but if this is the way it's going to happen, the earth is going to open up and swallow them down. Who's glorified? The Creator's glorified because they were His words. There is a time to speak. There is a time to remain silent. We have to be discerning enough and obedient enough to know when to speak, who to speak to, and deliver only the words we are given to speak. Anything else isn't necessary, because the word of our Creator is sufficient. It's that simple. So who gets the glory? Hopefully the Almighty does. He'll find a way. He will find a way to give it, to receive it. Hopefully this experience and the way I presented it will help you understand what to look for in these situations that you're going to see. Just remember whose words are being spoken. Did they come from the Almighty himself? Or is someone just saying what they think they should say? What they think will work in a particular situation? Bad publicity is bad publicity, but it's still publicity. But good publicity will always glorify our Creator, because all glory and all honor does go to him and him alone. So, maybe on Thursday I won't make you read any hard names.
Maybe not on Thursday.
And until then, we wish you many, many blessings,
Yes,
everyone.
we do.